Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be reviewing every single mainline Pokemon game, and I have included Let's Go Eevee and Legends Arceus in here because I do consider them to be mainline Pokemon game series. And before we start, I just want to preface this by saying it is my opinion, and I would be really interested to know yours. If you're watching this, you happen to disagree, you happen to agree, either way, drop a comment. And yeah, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna start with red and blue, um, and we're gonna move all the way up to scarlet and violet, maybe in that order. I don't know. I'm not very good at following orders anyway, but I'm gonna start. And I feel like I'm gonna start off with a controversial take just to begin with, but I'm gonna put red and blue in the meh tiers. It's just like it's meh. It's like it's meh. Not that does just because I put them here does not mean that these games are bad by any means. It's just that they're the first Pokemon games. So obviously, they're not gonna be masterpieces. They're not gonna be perfect. Obviously, anyone who played these games growing up as a child, they're gonna love the games. They're gonna think that it's the best thing ever made. But you could say the same thing about almost any Pokemon game that you grew up with, that you were a child when you played it. But if I look at it objectively, a lot of things that we know and love about Pokemon today just aren't in this game. There's no shiny Pokemon genders. You can even play as a female character. And the game had a lot of balance issues. So many balance issues. Psychic type Pokemon were overpowered. Ghost type Pokemon were bugged, so they couldn't deal super effective damage against psychic types. And there were just a lot more bugs that um, is obviously expected of the first game that was made, what, 25 years ago now. Is it 25? It seems more than that, but yes, I'm gonna stick with this rating, and I'm gonna move on to gold and silver. And I am gonna place these games in the good tier, because these games are good. They are actually good. They took everything about red and blue and improved it. They made it better. They're a staple in the Pokemon community. They've spawned countless remakes. People love these games. The sprites look amazing. Everyone loves Lugia and Oh. It's the first game that had color. They fixed a lot of the balance issues that red and blue had. They introduced dark and steel types. They fixed the bugs with ghost types. Stats were changed. Attack and defense was split into two different stats. So Pokemon like Alakazam weren't just, they didn't just hit hard and tank hard, and they had real weaknesses, which just made the game a lot more balanced. Speed and crit rate was separated, because if you didn't know, back in these games, the critical hit rate was tied to your speed. So Pokemon like Mewtwo were just busted beyond anything. You could breed Pokemon in the eugenics program to teach them new moves, which is really like the birth of egg moves. So yeah, I stand with where I put them. I'm gonna put them in good. Um, and I'm gonna move on to Crystal. The reason I've put them separately is because I would actually put Crystal higher than good, and take them into the amazing tier. Now, I wasn't a child. I wasn't even born when the Crystal. Well, I was born when the Crystal games came out. But I was like a year old, so I didn't play them growing up, but I played them as an adult. Well, I was like 14, I think. But and I've played these games so many times. I absolutely love these games. And I put them over gold and silver for the same reason. I put gold and silver above red and blue. Um, they just took the game and they made it better. There's so much more plot in Crystal, which is later adapted in the remakes. The little animation they added to sprites, everything about this game. The legendary dogs play a much bigger role. There's a whole side subplot with unknowns. Kurt can make multiple Pokeballs. Overall, Crystal was just a huge quality of life update for Gold and Silver. So yeah, I'm gonna put them in the amazing tier. The next game I'm gonna move on to is Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now these are remakes of Red and Blue, and they're good remakes. I did these. This is the first Pokemon game I ever played. It was Pokemon Fire Red, and I love it. I love it. If I was making a nostalgia list, these would go an amazing or masterpiece. But looking at it from an objective objective viewpoint, I think they're good remakes, as in that they improved upon what Red and Blue was. But Red and Blue again were the first Pokemon games, and with Ruby and Sapphire on the horizon, I just don't think Fire Red and Leaf Green were that good. So they did have a lot of quality of life improvements, such as trainer rematches, nulling same type status conditions, etc. All of that. Savvy Islands are really good. But as remakes, they don't really adapt any of the new features they added in the new generations. It's just a one for one remake of the Red and Blue games, which no one minds. I mean, they're great, they're amazing, but looking at it objectively, um, I would put it in the good tier, no more, no less from there. Um, Also, the battle mechanics are not split into special and physical, even though it is the third generation. So it's just small things like that. Pokemon move sets aren't as varied. Small things like that are why I would keep it from putting it in the amazing tier, which I guess is a good segue into Ruby and Sapphire, because I would put these games in the amazing tier because they are amazing games. I feel like Ruby and Sapphire was Pokemon's best attempt so far. Crystal was good, but this was Pokemon's best attempt so far. The Pokemon, the characters they introduced, everything was just great. I really liked biomes. Obviously, IGN infamously gave it a 7 out of 10 for too much water, but I didn't see it. Like yeah, that was a lot of water, but places are varied. There's diversity. There's a city that's just a tree fortress. Um, so yeah, I rate Ruby and Sapphire really highly, but there's some obvious problems with it, which is why I'm not putting it in the masterpiece section. To be honest, if Pokemon Emerald didn't exist, um, the Ruby and Sapphire would be pretty close to masterpieces. But because Pokemon Emerald exists, I can't put Ruby and Sapphire in the masterpiece section because that honor goes to Pokemon Emerald. The first game in the masterpiece section, Pokemon Emerald, it's perfect. I don't see anything wrong with it. I feel like I don't even have to explain myself. I mean, Battle Frontier, which was a huge improvement on the Battle Tower in Ruby and Sapphire. You can catch Rayquaza, you can catch all the legendaries. The storyline is a bit more in depth, with you having to fight Team Aqua and Team Magma. The gym leaders are better designed, and even if you exclude Battle Frontier, there's so much post game content. And unlike the sprites in Ruby and Sapphire, the sprites in Emerald end with the still sprites image, which is really cool. I think it's really cool anyway. There's a lot more with double battles. Gym leaders can be re-challenged. Um, and yeah, it's just a better Ruby and Sapphire. All the issues that were there in Ruby and Sapphire, which aren't that many, it improved on them, and made the game better, which is why I think Pokemon Emerald is a certified masterpiece, a classic Pokemon game. If you haven't played it, highly highly recommend going back and playing these games. Now moving on, we're now on to Gen 4. Now Gen 4 for me, amazing. I was what, 10 years old, 9 years old when Gen 4 games were coming out, so I it was really hard for me to make an objective and based list and not just be blinded by nostalgia. Uh, and despite all that nostalgia, I am gonna put Hot Gold and Soul Silver in amazing, because these games, they really are amazing. Every time I go back to Hot Gold and Soul Silver, I just think these games are so amazing. I think they're really close to perfect, but there's a few issues that I'll get into. But before that, the things that I did right, I mean, the Pokemon that follow behind you, Pokemon fans have been asking it, ever since I was 8, 9 years old. Obviously, with the recent games, it's different. But before that, Heart Gold and Soul Silver were the only things that kind of had them. Um, but the reasons I keep it from being a masterpiece is the level curve. To be honest, after the fourth gym leader, all the way up until you fight Blue, which is the 16th gym leader in Kanto, the Pokemon that you fight in the wild are really weak. That makes it super hard to level your Pokemon up. It makes it such a grind. I remember when I was a child, um, I got a Mamoswine, was a Swinub, once I got to Kanto, and it took me like days to level it up to a Mamoswine and put it on my team, which just it's so much effort to get there because you don't get enough experience, and the Pokemon that you do catch later on are just not strong enough for you to add on your team. And the starters have some problems with them as well. As much as I love Meganium, Victory Bell is always the better choice because you get it right at the start as a Bellsprout. It has dual typing, it learns better moves. Meganium does not learn any good grass type moves. And even if you choose for Alligator, you get a free shiny Gyarados that just hits so much harder with the the wider side of moves. So, so yeah, and that there isn't much diversity. We were talking about the location diversity in Emerald. There just isn't that much diversity. However, these games are still amazing. They have some of the best trainer battle music, and the nostalgia factor was really strong with this. I was really debating hard whether to put in a good or amazing tier, but I think amazing is where these games sit because they really are amazing. Moving on to the other Gen 4 games, we have Diamond and Pearl. Now, Diamond and Pearl, I am going to put in the good tier. The reason for this is that if you grew up with Diamond and Pearl, which I know so many people did, and I'm one of them, I love Diamond and Pearl, but there's just so many things wrong with Diamond and Pearl. I mean, the type variety is awful. It's horrid. There's two fire types in the whole game, and one of them is a starter. So if you don't pick Infinite, you're left with Ponyta as the only fire type in the game. There's two ice types, there's three electric types, and there's only one non-legendary dragon type. And so not only does it not have a lot of diversity with your team because you can't catch a very varied team, the people you fight, like gym leaders, elite fours, they have to use Pokemon that on their type, like Flint, Candace, Wokner. They all use Pokemon that don't match their types at all because there just isn't that many of their types. There's no ice types, there's no electric types, there's no fire types. So yeah, and the regional decks did add so many cool Pokemon. I mean, the Gen 4 evolutions they added in Diamond and Pearl were amazing. Magnezone, Tangrowth, Gliscor. But out of all of the evolutions, only Miss Magius, Honchkrow, and Roserade, I think also Weavile, made it into the regular games. The rest are all unavailable until after you defeat the champion, which I mean, they may as well just not be in the game, right? um, the HP bars take forever to deplete. If you ever happen to come across a Blissey, that's just the worst thing you can ever imagine. The surfing speed is so slow, super slow. And one more thing, because I know so many people um, would complain about me putting Diamond and Pearl is not amazing or masterpiece, but Diamond and Pearl, the way AI works in Pokemon games, right? In all Pokemon games, is that there's a difficulty level they can be set to. In Gen 4, the difficulty level moves from 0 to 8, 0 being the easiest and 8 being the hardest. In Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, all trainers, including Cynthia, are set at 1. So the people you fight are just not a challenge. They will always just choose a move at random. They don't take the easy knockouts they can get, and the game is just not very challenging. Um, so yeah, yeah, that's good. That's a good tier. That's a good tier game for me. If to be honest, I feel like putting them in the in the meta tier, but I think good is a good rating for these games because while there's so many things that are wrong with it, they are incredibly fun. um, I feel like my mind is swaying as I'm talking. Though I've complained about this game so much now for like the past 3 minutes that I kind of want to kind of want to knock it down a tier. But I don't know. Maybe we'll think about it. It feels wrong though. It feels wrong um, to put the game here, but I guess we can improve that with Pokemon Platinum, which I am gonna put in the amazing tier, because this game is amazing. Everything that was wrong with Diamond and Pearl, not everything, most of the things that were wrong with Diamond and Pearl, they fixed in Platinum. The game is actually a lot harder. Not all trainers AI is set at 1. The dex is a lot more varied. Um, but there's still some things wrong with it. There's still some problems. There's no way to obtain Gallade or Electivire or Magmortar before the post game. Um, Flynn only has two fire types. I don't know. I don't know. There's just a lot of problems with it, but like I said, the game is good. There's a more varied Pokedex. There's a better distribution of Pokemon. A lot of items aren't gated until post game, like they are in Diamond and Pearl. You can actually play. You can actually play the game. You can have these items. The story is improved upon a lot. And the whole distortion world timeline is amazing. I mean, as a kid playing that, the first Pokemon game I played where the shit's going upside down and left and right and Giratina. The whole sequence with Cyrus and Giratina coming up and him just like capturing him. I mean, it was amazing. It's really good stuff. But yeah, there's some very clear problems with it. Um, but unlike Diamond and Pearl, they're not so glaringly obvious, which is why I put Platinum in the amazing tier. Now, moving on, I'm so glad we're here. Moving on to Black and White, and Black and White too. The reason I'm gonna do both of these together is because I think these games are a masterpiece, both of them. Now I might be blinded by nostalgia. I tried to be as biased as I could, as critical as I could, but that's just that is so hard for me to fault these games because I love them so much. I know people hated it so much when it first came out. There was so much hate for it with the designs, the Pokemon, everything. But it was a huge risk that Pokemon took, and in my opinion, it paid off. I mean, all the new Pokemon they introduced are amazing. Um, there's the storyline, the lore is fantastic. The story is amazing. The villain is actually coherent and memorable. Um, like from the moment the game starts and you see the little animation of Ghetsis putting the crown on N all the way till the end of the game. I mean, it's one of the best Pokemon games ever made. I don't think there's anything that knocks it down. The story was great. The lore was intriguing. The characters had a lot of depth. I mean, N is probably one of the best characters that the Pokemon games have ever had. The post game is amazing. The post game in Black and White 2 is even better than the post game in Black and White 1. Um, but yeah, it's hard for me to follow these games. I know a lot of people complained about how the pixelated sprites moved. So I think this was the first time that the Pokemon games had it so that when you sent a Pokemon out, they were moving, like weaving and bobbing, and that made the sprites look really pixelated, and a lot of people just hated it. And I can see that. I can definitely see why that would bother you. But I think after like the first gym, it shouldn't bother you anymore because you've gotten used to it. You're in the story, you're in here, and you're enjoying the game. The starters are amazing. I mean, I guess another firefighting starter, that's just really boring and unoriginal. But it happens for like another three generations. So what are you gonna do about it? Game Freak just really seems to love their firefighting combinations. There's nothing I can do about it. Certainly nothing you can do about it. I think we can. Nothing any of us can do about it. Game Freak just does what they want. I'm gonna move on to X and Y. Now X and Y, I'm gonna put in the good tier. Yeah, yeah. It feels so wrong to rate them higher than Diamond and Pearl, but it's I controversial, but it's true. And I don't know. I don't know. I think the only reason I'm putting them in the good tier is because of Mega Evolutions. I mean, Mega Evolutions was just it was possibly the best gimmick Pokemon has ever done to date. If I think about the gimmicks, okay, Gen 3 had double battles, Gen 4, I don't know what the gimmick was in Gen 4, but Gen 5 had triple battles and rotational battles and all of that stuff. You have Z moves, you have terrestrialization, Dynamax, but none of these will ever compare to Mega Evolutions. I mean, Mega Evolutions just took so many Pokemon that people may have forgotten or young kids wouldn't have known because they're Gen 1 Pokemon, or Pokemon that just kind of lost their significance because of power creep, like Pinsir and Heracross were back again. Mega Pinsir, also, by the way, one of my favorite Megas ever introduced. Mega Evolutions were just such a good gimmick, and the game was so much fun because of it, that I feel like I would put these games in the good tier. But if I'm being, um, also the online functionality for this game is really good. You know, wonder trades were really good. It made EV training a lot more easier, which means competitive Pokemon players had a lot of an easier time. I get that competitive Pokemon isn't what a lot of people do, but it is still a huge part of the game, and I feel like it's just better when you make things like EV training a lot easier. You should be able to EV train your Pokemon in less than 30 minutes. You know, it shouldn't have to be something that you spend hours and days doing. Um, but there's a lot of things wrong with it. The pacing is bad. The first and second gyms is so far apart, and the game is so easy. I mean, this is the first game where the XP share gave XP to all your Pokemon. So leveling up is just really not a chore. You level up so easy, and by the time you get to the champion, Diantha has her Pokemon like level 60 something, and your Pokemon are probably, if you've defeated all the trainers and done all kind of side story things, your your Pokemon are probably like level 70, or maybe one of them's even level 80 if you've had them from the start of the game. And the game has a weak post game, you know, and a lot of plots and sub stories and subplots lead to nowhere. I know there was a cancelled Pokemon Z, but the game doesn't exist, so I have to go with what I have here. And Pokemon X and Y, it just doesn't follow up on these plot lines. So um, yeah, for me, I'm gonna put them in the good tier. It is potential. I feel like right now it's borderline between these two tiers, but for the sake of this list, I think I'm gonna put it in the good tier. Um, but actually, now that I think about it, X and Y is also really the first game that used linear routes. You know, the game is there's no puzzles in the game anymore. I mean, you know, like when I was playing Fire Red, Leaf Green, Emerald, I had to I had to Google like how to get through Victory Road. But after X and Y, it seems like Victory Road is just nothing. Like there's is just like another cave. It might as well be the rock tunnel. Um, so yeah, maybe I'm being swayed to put it down a tier. Um, yeah, yeah. I feel like it's yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring them down a tier because there's a lot of things wrong with it. But Mega Evolutions, best gimmick ever. And I want to rate it higher just because of Mega Evolutions, but I won't. I'll hold off for now. Um, Moving on to Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, they maintained Mega Evolutions for these remakes, which I love. I absolutely love it because we got Mega Rayquaza, who is just a badass, amazing. We got Mega Evolutions for the Hoenn starters, which are probably one of my favorite starter trios. And there's a lot more strategy and depth to the game than the original Ruby Sapphire Emerald. Um, but the reason I put it below Ruby Sapphire and Amber, well, actually, I don't know. I mean, the games are really amazing. The reason I went good is because as far as remakes go, there's nothing new. Well, I guess they have redesigned the gyms, and they made it a fun experience for those who've played Ruby Sapphire Emerald, and as well as new players who've never played those games before. So maybe I'm being swayed to put in the amazing tier above good, with Ruby Sapphire. Yeah, actually, I think I'll put them in the amazing tier. There's not a lot I can fault with these games. I mean, the Delta chapter was good. If I was to criticize it, you know, as far as remakes go, it's the same as Fire Red Leaf Green. You know, it hasn't added a lot more, but the thing it does better than Fire Red Leaf Green is it has adapted the mechanics of the generation it's in. It has mega evolutions, all the battle mechanics. It has adapted it, and they've tried to make a game that's actually fun. There's a lot of effort put into it. There's a lot of heart, and yeah, I like these games. So I'm gonna put them high. Now, let me move on to Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon, controversial games. People didn't enjoy them as much. Some people love it, some people swear by it. Me personally, I'm gonna go good tier. They are fun. I like Alola a lot. They introduced like what 80, 70, 80 new Pokemon, which are all good. I liked I like the Alolan forms. I don't think there's any Pokemon that I would really look at and be like, wow, that's disgusting. Can't believe they made that into a Pokemon. But hey, that good games. They're good games. Z moves, I wasn't a huge fan of, and I know a lot of people weren't either. Competitively, I don't really see why Z moves. I don't really see why Z moves would be a good idea. I mean, we all know how Z moves went. It gave a lot of viability to meme builds like Magikarp using Z Splash, and things like that. The things that this game did right is, in my opinion, Ultra Beasts. Introducing Ultra Beasts into the world of Pokemon games is perhaps one of the best decisions Game Freak has ever made, because I love Ultra Beasts. I mean, the whole lore behind them, the idea behind them, and all the Ultra Beasts that they have introduced, amazing, amazing. But um, there's a lot of problems with it. Oh, one more good thing. I think it's a good thing. Is before you select a move, you can tell if it's super effective or not against someone else. Which veteran seasoned Pokemon players don't need that. Um, but and I guess it's a good and a bad thing, because it is still hand holding, and makes the game a lot more easier. But sometimes, when I was a child playing these games, because these games are still aimed at children. When I was a child and I'd used the wrong move, and it did like no damage, and I'd feel like such an idiot. Um, so I don't know. I guess I have mixed feelings about that one. But let's talk about the bad. Festival Plaza, one of the worst online systems in the entire Pokemon series. The game is too easy. Z moves are bad. The games just feel rust, to be honest, and the storyline is subpar. The games feel rust storyline is subpar. But the Ultra Beasts are very cool. So I think it's a solid, good tier game. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I I'm conflicted, right? I'm conflicted. I want to put these in the good tier as well. They have a lack of new features. They've only added five new Pokemon, and three new forms for existing Pokemon. A lot of the game feels like a tutorial. It's people telling you what to do. There's a lot of hand holding, so much hand holding. A lot of the characters and their storylines feel forced. The writing is not very good. Um, and when you really dig deeper into the story, it's a little bit disappointing compared to other games. But Lucamine as a character, just her, not the other character, Lucamine as a character is a good villain. I thought she was a good villain, a great sort of manipulative character. Something we've seen with maybe Giovanni and Silver, but not at this scale, not so personal, intimate, and direct. But it's a lot more. It's a bigger dimension, and you can fight Giovanni. You can fight Giovanni again. Rainbow Rocket, Team Rainbow Rocket is amazing. Um, and it's such a fun experience when you play the game. Gameplay wise, I don't see why anything would be wrong with it. I mean, it's amazing, it's perfect, really. I mean, not there's far from perfect, otherwise it'd be a masterpiece. But you know what I mean. It's a fun game to play. But as far as this tier list goes, there's some things that I feel like it could have done better. The writing could have been better. The story could have been better. They could have added more new Pokemon. There's some things just some of the features aren't very meaningful. Um, we need to, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm swaying myself the more I speak and wanting to move it amazing, but I'm gonna keep it at the good tier. and move on to Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Now, these games, as far as remakes go, they were bad. They were probably the worst remakes we've ever seen. I mean, they add nothing new to the game, and the game just looks subpar. I mean, it doesn't adapt any of the 3D stuff. I know there's some people who definitely out there like the chibi style, but this game has come out after X and Y, after Sun and Moon. I think it also came out after Sword and Shield actually. But it just doesn't look like those games. I mean, Sword and Shield, as much as we complain about it, the game itself looks great. But the chibi sprites in BDSP just look weird, and then we go back to the 1 TM system. um, I don't know, there's a lot of things that I feel like had become staples for a good reason because they were good quality of life updates that they just reversed in BDSP. um, so yeah, there's good things about it as well. Gym leaders and elite fours were revamped, and they can be a challenge, they can definitely be a challenge, but there's not a lot of diversity in the teams themselves. I mean, when you go to Whitney's gym, all of them have like three Machokes, or there's a trainer you fight that has like five Geodudes or six Geodudes. So yeah, there's just a lot of things. There's just a lot of things wrong with it. I think they're a bad game. I could put them a tier higher, but then I would feel wrong putting it aside Red Blue, Diamond Pearl, and X and Y, because those games are definitely better than BDSP. So I would have to knock this down a tier and put in the bad tier. And I'm gonna move on actually to the Let's Go games. Now, another remake. I'm gonna put them in the meh tier because they introduced some mechanics that is smooth. As far as remakes of Red and Blue go, if you're someone who grew up playing the Red and Blue games and you absolutely love them, I would highly recommend playing Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, because the nostalgia alone will make you so happy, and you will love this game. You will, because you loved Red and Blue. But if I had to look at it objectively, they aren't as deep as many of the other games. The motion controls are annoying. They don't have a safari zone. It's really difficult to level up your team, because the way you interact with wild Pokemon is completely different, which is another thing. The way you catch Pokemon is like in Pokemon Go, which some people might like, but I think it's is boring as all hell. And this is just not fun. You can't fish in the game. There's no voice acting, and the hand holding. I mean, the hand holding is worse than in X and Y or in Sun and Moon. There's so much hand holding in the game, but I suppose it's made for kids. The game had, I think the game had a lot of potential. There's a lot of things they did right, like riding around on your Charizard. The game looks good. It definitely looks good, but it could be better. It could be a lot better. So I think the position it's at right now, it's a good place for it to be in. But like I said, if you're an old dad, highly recommend playing this game because you will love it. You will love it. Moving on now, we are at Sword and Shield, which quite possibly the worst, most overhated game. Well, Scarlet and Violet is yet to come, but Sword and Shield were hated on so much when they first came out, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. The game itself, looks wise, amazing. Graphics wise, looks amazing. Some of the Pokemon they introduced, I absolutely love. Dragapult is one of my favorite Pokemon that they've ever made, right? So there's nothing wrong with the Pokemon they introduced. Some of them are boring, some of them are really cool though. So I have nothing wrong with the Pokemon they introduced. But if we get down to the heart of the problem, why is there so much dialogue in the game? I mean, Hop, I used to think Barry was annoying, right? But Barry is like a saint who's never spoken a single word in his entire life compared to Hop. I mean, every time Hop opens his mouth, it's some speech about perseverance and this and that, and it's just like, shut up, dude, like just stop talking. We don't need a motivational talk every time we run into you, for every little thing, every little bump. Um, every time you fight the guy, it's like a lesson on perseverance, or some kind of bad impersonation of a freedom fighter. um so yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not just Hop. All the characters in the game are devoid of personality. The dialogue is bad. The pacing of this game is bad. Getting back to the characters thing, Leon, the champion. Okay, so champions, right? In all the games before this one, champions are awesome. I mean, starting from Lance all the way to Steven, uh, Wallace, Cynthia. I mean, even Wallace, right? Cynthia, Alder, maybe not Diantha, but even Diantha has something going for her. All of these champions are supposed to be the best in their game, like the best in this region. They are the champion. They're the pinnacle of Pokemon battling. But Leon has nothing going for him. I mean, he's such a boring character. Everyone has their own thing, cool stories surrounding them. Um, but Leon is like, oh my, his throwing stance is so exquisite. Like, who cares? Who cares? It's bad. It's lame. And the biggest thing that makes me want to put this game in the bad tier is not just the hand holding, but we don't even get to do anything. It's like every time you run into a bad situation, they come in and they're like, well, kid, why don't you focus on gym battling and let us grown up adults handle the bad guys? Which, I mean, makes sense. Realistically, that's what you should do. But this is a Pokemon game. This is a game. Like, let us fight the bad guys and feel a sense of accomplishment. But when you finish the game, you're just like, well, okay, that was all right, I guess. That was fun. And why is the game so easy? I mean, Eternatus is literally the strongest Pokemon they've ever introduced, base stat total 1000, and you can catch it in your first Pokeball that you throw at it. So I don't know. And I talked about the maps in X and Y being really linear. If the maps in X and Y were linear, Pokemon Sword and Shield is like you could play the game blindfolded and finish it because there's no puzzles, there's nothing to remember. You just walk in straight lines and you're at your destination. And the map is small. The map is so small, and the power creep is just disgusting. So yeah, like I'm not a big fan of the games, but like I said, the game does look amazing. Some of the Pokemon are good. So can we talk about Zacian? Who the hell creates a Pokemon like Zacian with Intrepid Sword? Like, that is just disgusting. But hey, whatever. We're gonna move on and go to Scarlet and Violet, and I'm gonna put these games in the good tier. Okay, so here's my gripe with Scarlet and Violet. I actually really like how ambitious Pokemon were trying to be. They took some huge risks. They created the first open world sort of game where you can just fight the gyms in any order you want. You can find the last gym leader, get absolutely destroyed when your Pokemon are level 20, or which is, fun. It's like Elden Ring, kind of Breath of the Wild. I mean, on paper it sounds like so much fun, but the game was released with so many technical issues, frame rate drops, glitches, crashes, and the game just doesn't look good. I mean, I know it looks all right, it looks playable and you can play it, but when you compare it to all the other games that have been here so far, even BDSP looks good compared to Scarlet and Violet, and then I marked BDSP down a lot for how the game looks. So Scarlet and Violet, I can't let them go off easy. Um, and there's a lack of interaction with NPCs. NPCs are just kind of nothing, nowhere. They're really far and few. Trainers feel really far and few. You can't enter houses in towns, and even when you enter like a sandwich shop or something, you don't actually enter a shop. It just pulls up a screen where you can buy a sandwich. So yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I'm gonna put these games in the bad tier and maybe move up BDSP, um, because because as I don't know. I mean, I don't know. These games are bad. Like these are the Scarlet and Violet was. I had fun playing it, and the competitive was so much fun because there's so many different Pokemon you can catch. I mean, if you were a child, who grew up with the games like from the first 3 4 gens, and you played Scarlet and Violet, you'd be like, wow, I can have a team full of pseudo legendaries because no one can stop me and I can catch all of them early. And you would be right in doing so. I mean, that's part of the fun of this game. Um, but I feel like Game Freak could have spent so much more time on this game and made it so much better. There's so many glitches. The music is good. The soundtrack of this game is definitely good, but it just feels like this game is incomplete, and the Switch isn't the console for it. And the legendary Pokemon are mid. I mean, honestly, it's a bike. They look cool, they look cool, but it's a bike. Like I'd rather have the dog with a sword in his mouth than have the bike. Even though I do think Raiden's design is very good, the value of the legendaries in my eyes drops so much more when you can ride them the whole game like a bike, but not even get to fight with them. I don't know. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things um, wrong with these games. So I'm gonna put them in the bad tier. I originally had them a tier higher, but now that I've spoken so much in an empty room by myself, I'm basically talking to myself, and I feel like they definitely go in the bad tier. Um, but hey, it is what it is. We finally get to Pokemon Legends Arceus, and I've been waiting for this one because it's not that I'm saving the best for last. I think this is the last Pokemon game that was Scarlet and Violet. This came out before Scarvy, but Legends Arceus is a masterpiece. It is 100% a masterpiece. One of the best Pokemon games I have ever played. Well, it is the best Pokemon game I've ever played. It's perfect. There's nothing I can say to fault these games. I mean, if you love Pokemon, if you've played any of the games even once, play Legends Arceus. Just play Legends Arceus. It is perfect in every sense of the way. If you're a fan of Pokemon, you will love this game. And if you've never played Pokemon before and you want to get into it, play Legends Arceus. It's amazing. There's so many things that the game just does right. And also, the game looks beautiful. The game looks magnificent. I mean, the environment, the biomes, the way the Pokemons are, the way the characters interact with each other. Um, it's amazing. It's perfect. The character customization is also really solid. Um, so yeah, there's this is the list. This is the list. There's not much more I can say about the masterpieces, just because there's not a lot I have to criticize them for. Um, but yeah, this is the list. I have 4 masterpieces on here. A lot are in the amazing tier. There's few in the good tier. Um, I didn't expect so many to be bottom tier, to be honest, when I was originally thinking of making this video. Um, but hey, man, this is the list. This is what I feel like is an accurate representation of the mainline Pokemon games. So I'm gonna stick with it. If I was to change anything, maybe I would put Diamond and Pearl or X and Y in the good tier. X and Y in the good tier feels right to me. It feels natural to me. I feel like I peer pressured myself into putting it a tier lower, but X and Y, I think I think they're good games. I mean, it's too easy, and it's all of that. Everything, all the criticisms are really valid, but I want it in the good tier because I enjoy those games. So yeah, this is the tier list. I plan on making one for all the spin-off games. Hopefully soon I'll get to it. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you have watched till here, if you watched all this way, thank you so much for watching. It's crazy to think that someone would watch me rant about Pokemon games for I don't even know how many minutes I've been doing this for now. But thank you if you're still here. Consider subscribing and leaving a like, and I'd really be interested to know your opinion on if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, like I said before. Leave a comment. Let me know. Because I love that kind of shit. So yeah, thank you for watching.